that's going to be us now. Right. Right. So, Si Harrison. Right. So you are the co-founder of the JMCPA,
Correct.
the Jersey Medicinal Cannabis Patients Alliance,
Mm-hmm.
and the coordinator of End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey campaign.
Yep.
Yeah. At this point, I'll give a shout out to the founder, Danny Woosnam, because obviously, and there's a lot of other people who work tirelessly behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into the history of cannabis, hemp, however we refer to it, how did you yourself get involved in this movement?
Well, it probably goes back a couple of years now, actually, because I've had an interest in cannabis for a long time now. But it was after the introduction of the medicinal cannabis law, which was end of 2018. Beginning of 2019, the law was published, and I noticed that there was a clause which made it illegal for patients to smoke their medicinal cannabis.
Right.
And that intrigued me, so I started emailing Monty Tadier, who brought forth that proposition, questioning him on that, and then kind of started emailing him and a couple of other politicians quite regularly, just talking generally about trying to make medicinal cannabis available to patients in the island. And through those emails, I started doing a lot of research into what the situation actually was in Jersey, kind of looking for the laws and any kind of mention of sort of cannabis or any other kind of drug issues on the gov.je website. And then over the course of those emails and everything, I kind of built up quite a good bit of information about the situation here in Jersey, relating to cannabis, which I ended up putting together in a website, convi.je, which is the Jersey French word for cannabis.
Right.
Convi, Cannevi.
How do you pronounce that? Convey?
Convi.
Convi.
Yeah.
Right.
There's the guy, Geraint Jennings, is it? No, that's not the right name. But yeah, there's a guy who does the Gerrier stuff online.
Yeah.
He's got the pronunciation there.
Right.
So I've picked that up.
Is it, so was Monty the first person who was like receptive towards this sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back over the years, he's kind of been the main Jersey politician who has raised cannabis issues. Not just the more recent medicinal cannabis proposition, but even going back to 2014, there was a series of propositions that were brought up.
Yeah, I remember.
By way of paper petition.
Yeah.
To try and get specific patients medicinal cannabis, but those were all refused.
Was that how long ago it was? 2014?
Yeah, 2014.
Fucking hell.
But since then, he asks, he's the most kind of prolific asker of questions on cannabis issues, and certainly has been the only one who's really kind of spoken out in support of cannabis. So yeah, he was especially as being the one who actually brought forward that proposition, he was the one I first spoke to. So yeah, by emailing him and a couple of others, I put together that website. And then it got to the point where, it needed to be a kind of community group sort of approach.
Yeah.
And so I kind of sort of stepped back from my incessant emails to these politicians, which probably much to their delight. And then at the beginning of, in May last year, Danny set up the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey group. He, on setting up, invited a load of different people that he'd seen sort of posting about cannabis on Facebook to join the group and be admins. And from that, I became an admin and...
Because that's only that's just over a year now, isn't it? And it's already nearly 5,000 followers.
Yep. Well, we actually reached. I was looking back. I did a summary yesterday, actually, over the past year, and we reached 2,500 users in a week, 4,000 users within a month, and then it slowed down since then. Unfortunately,
yeah, that's usually the way it happens.
It's kind of been about the same numbers. Since
because it normally plateaus. You normally get like a massive spike, and then it plateaus, depending on obviously where you live. Yeah. The amount of people, but that's still some doing for 5,000 followers near enough in a year.
Yeah.
And then obviously on that page you've got all the latest data, and even in a pandemic it hasn't slowed you down in any way, shape or form.
Well, no, that was the amazing thing. The timing of it really was, so the group started on the 15th of May, and about 10 days later, we start to get the first stories of patients in the island receiving medicinal cannabis.
Right.
So as a consequence of the coronavirus pandemic, the UK allowed prescriptions to be sent in the post. So you also had the cannabis clinics being able to do video consultations. So
Yeah, I remember this, yeah.
That allowed Jersey patients to access medicinal cannabis from these clinics in the UK. So there was only one clinic at the time, the medical cannabis clinics in London,
Right.
that were offering this service, and a couple of patients were managed to get it online and share their experience with the members of the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey group, which really then
Took off.
snowballed.
Yeah.
Lots of interest, lots of people sharing their experience. We were able to kind of document the process, and we also reached out to the other clinics and pharmacies in the UK to find out whether they could work with Jersey patients.
Right.
So by August, we'd managed to contact them all and got them all to confirm that they could work with Jersey patients. So that opened up the whole UK cannabis clinic scene to Jersey patients.
Because wasn't it? I've got it in my head that it was James Bedden that was one of the first
Yes,
to get it.
yes, he was. Yeah,
Was he the first?
he was one of the first. Yeah,
Oh, awesome! Yeah.
yeah, and
'Cause
it
he-
was
'cause
because
he-
he did that video because he's got
That's
he's got his Cannaquad
Yeah, yeah.
YouTube channel, and he did his first video, which
Yeah.
was the end of May,
Yeah.
well, it was just over a year ago, and that was one of the first things that kind of raised, opened everyone's
Yeah.
eyes to the possibility that
Because the way he done that,
this could now be done.
it was amazing. Because obviously he had the I remember it was a vape.
Yeah.
And the flower came through the post,
Yep.
the bud, and then it was awesome to watch it. But then again, it's a milestone.
Yeah.
Obviously to think that.
Yeah,
actually-
it was complicated. It was a complicated process initially going through the UK, which unfortunately people in Guernsey are still having to do. They don't have a local clinic yet.
Right.
But you had to apply for an import license from the chief pharmacist in Jersey. The pharmacist that you were getting your medication from in the UK had to apply for an export license from the Home Office. So there was all this rigmarole to go through every time for each and every prescription.
Because that's a lot of red tape for
Yeah.
essentially medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of those import licenses, we were able to then put in freedom of information requests later, and we could look back and see that in April, May of last year, there was only 5 patients. June, there was 45. July, it was 100.
So you can see the
August,
climb.
We could see could see it rising. We could see that there was, we were getting an increase in patients. And I think, in combination with, obviously patient demand, the ability to share the information, but also the kind of disappearance of the black market as a consequence of the pandemic, that people who were previously self-medicating no longer could. And also because price-wise, the actual, in the UK, the medicinal stuff is a bit more expensive than your street illegal stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas in Jersey, it's the opposite. It's actually cheaper. The medicinal stuff's cheaper than the black market.
Oh, really?
So that also probably encouraged
'cause
people
that's
who
gonna-
were self-medicating, who probably wouldn't have bothered or been interested otherwise.
Well,
to
obviously that
actually,
was one of
reach
the
out.
main things that they said at the beginning, whether you're a campaigner or anyone, politicians or anyone. They said we need to get rid of the black market. Obviously, get rid of the black market, you'd have to undercut the black market. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was more expensive in the UK than street stuff.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm not up to date on
But
UK
then again,
street prices.
then
But
again, in
as
the
far
UK
as I'm
it's-
aware, it's on a par, if not.
And over here, it's
Yeah, it's considerably cheaper.
yeah. But then it gets Jersey and everything's more expensive.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the politicians say.
Yeah, and
But,
Guernsey again, even more so.
Yeah. But yeah. So given
So probably just to finish that off. So we got to the point of having all the UK clinics and everything being in the ECPJ group,
Right.
but that was kind of dominating the group. So obviously the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey group was all about changing the law essentially to stop it being a criminal offence. We don't believe it's in the public interest to continue to prosecute people for personal possession.
Yeah.
Whereas the medicinal side is a separate issue. So we formed the Jersey Medicinal Cannabis Patient Alliance group to separate out the medicinal stuff and become a kind of a focus and forum for those patients and for patient advocacy.
See, but that's probably the smartest thing that anyone could have done. If you want to get it legalized, you have to separate those two.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they always cloud each other.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's like I say, for a year, it's amazing what's come out of that page. And like I say, I do scroll through it every now and then. There is a lot of good stuff on there, and then I'd invite obviously everyone to go over and have a look. But you mentioned before about what was it called again? The Jersey name for weed?
Convy.
Because now we're going to go into a little bit of history about weed. Because it goes back to, well, some say 5,000 years. The Chinese apparently used it to treat gout, malaria, and for pain relief.
Yeah, those are the historical record of them using it as a medicine. But I think there's archaeological evidence going back 10,000 years.
Really?
For kind of first usage.
Would that be for the same sort of thing?
Well, that's people farming it, using it.
Yeah.
Hemp obviously has thousands of uses.
Yeah.
Very versatile plant. So it would have been used primarily for those effects.
Yeah.
But it also, in Chinese medicine, we have it written record from about 4,000 years ago, I think.
What's the first documented use of it in Jersey? Do you know?
The first documented, the first bit I found historically is from the 1500s, which is actually a government prohibition on the export of hemp.
From Jersey?
Yeah. It was so in demand and so required, probably for rope and twine and things for shipbuilding, etc., that it was so valuable that it was illegal to export it. But looking back, I did read some kind of things relating to Lahugby a while ago. So that there is a theory, a paper out there that talks about when they first excavated Lahugby. There's a load of archaeological artifacts that have been called vase supports,
right?
Which kind of look almost like an oil burner.
Yeah.
And these had burnt plant materials in, which has been suggested to have been narcotics of some form, which has been suggested in the past to be opiates or cannabis.
And how far back does that go?
You're talking about 5,000 years ago there. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Like if you're going to make all these huge megalithic monuments, you're going to need good strong rope to move those rocks around.
Yeah.
But looking into it more recently, there's the archaeological evidence kind of suggests that hemp and cannabis didn't actually get to this part of Northern Europe until probably 1200 BC, about 3,000 years ago.
Right.
So that's too late for
that to be
for our dolmens and that side of things. But that's just what the evidence shows us to date. It doesn't disprove that there wasn't hemp and cannabis around then.
Yeah.
It's just the evidence so far.
And because it's plant matter, so it's going to die off and disintegrate. Well,
you'd be surprised. Pollen, like when you do the kind of the deep cores through the mud and everything, you can get the pollen grains out, which will give you an idea of what the environment was. And there is evidence from St. Juan's from about 6,000 years ago of, they say hemp, but it could be hops because they're in the same family, so they're difficult to distinguish. There's
we've got a
possibility there, but
no matter what, we've got a long history with it.
Yeah, and it shows up in the Jersey language. So we've got a word for cannabis in Jersey French.
Yeah.
There's 5 fields. The word for a hemp field is Cannibia, and there's 5 fields that remain that have the word Cannibia in their name.
Like
Cannabis. Well, that's a different one.
Is it?
We'll get to that one in a sec. And there's also a Cannibia cottage as well.
Right.
And there's also the word for a hemp stalk is a cannabot. And there's a rue cannabat in St. John. So we have these names that probably go back several hundred years, dotted around the island. When it comes to Cannabis, it's suggested that it could be based on that word for a hemp field, Cannabia. But it's tenuous. It's not for sure.
It's not written in stone, so to speak. You're right.
No, so it's possible, maybe, don't know.
So it used to be banned to export it from Jersey because it was so valuable.
Yes, that was in the mid 1500s. For a bit there.
So I'm assuming, obviously,
but at the same time, you had in the UK Henry VIII required everyone to grow hemp for the navy.
Hemp or cannabis? Is there a difference?
Same thing.
Same thing. Right. So he ordered people to grow wheat, basically for what, shipbuilding and rope and clothes and
textiles.
But again, there's a million different uses for it.
Yeah.
So it does go back. Obviously, there's I was going to ask you this before, but I thought I'd ask you on camera just because it tickled me when I actually read it. There was a film. There was a film released in 1936 called Reefer Madness.
Yes.
Have you ever seen it?
Yes. It's on YouTube. You can
How
check
bad
it
is
out.
it?
It is ridiculous. The idea that consuming cannabis will turn you into
A murderer.
a rapist, and it's incredible.
Because that was...
Highly worth watch.
that's what I seen it and I thought there was only a few snips of it in this thing that I watched, and yeah, it looks like the sort of thing that you could spend a Saturday afternoon watching.
I think it's only an hour long.
Pissing yourself.
But yeah, it is ridiculous.
Because because that was following mainstream hysteria in America. Because obviously there was a lot of weird shit that they were saying about cannabis.
Yeah. That's
so
where the word marijuana came from.
What do you mean by that?
So there was how to phrase this. So essentially, in the United States, there was a concern about this new drug that was essentially being used by Mexicans and
Mexican immigrants, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mexican immigrants predominantly.
Yeah.
And they called this drug marijuana. But what was interesting is when it came to 1937 and they brought in the Marijuana Tax Act, which made cannabis illegal in the States. When it went through, the representatives who were voting the act through didn't realise that marijuana was hemp.
Right.
It was only afterwards that they realised that actually what they'd made illegal was this very useful plant.
Right.
It was brought in to help obfuscate what they were talking about to make it illegal.
Because that was so following that was 1936 when they released that film, and it was actually funded by a church group, intended to be shown to parents for educational purposes. And like you say, obviously, Reefer Madness was released and claimed that smoking weed would lead to rape, murder, suicide, and insanity. But again, Americans always take it too far. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, I expect nothing less.
It's fear of the unknown, really.
Yeah, and there was another thing. I can't remember his name now. Harry
Ainslinger.
That's it. Who said that it would make was it white women sleep with black entertainers or something like that? Another thing, and you know, like so xenophobia, racism, and everything else rolled into one. Very
much.
But
a product of its time.
Ironically, around that time that would have been standard, especially in America. But the first American flag was made out of hemp fibres.
Yeah, and George Washington grew it and farmed it. So did other of the founding fathers.
It's insane to think that. And in 1913, California became the first state to make illegal. Ironically, they were the first state to legalise medicinal cannabis with the approval of Proposition 215 in 1996. That's a strange one with America, because they always do things. You know, it's never down the middle. They always have to take it too far. Again, I'm definitely going to have to watch Reefer Madness.
It was going on around the world at the time. If you look back in the kind of teens and 20s of the 20th century, there were a number of countries that were introducing laws against cannabis and other drugs, primarily due to association with immigrant groups, immigrant workers to those countries. And so essentially xenophobia and racism is the root of
why they banned it.
Yeah.
So basically it started with Mexican workers. They're coming
and
coming
black
over
jazz
to
musicians.
Yeah, and so they're coming over and working, basically, and because they were smoking this plant that no one really understood what it was at the time, they blamed it on that and then introduced legislation to basically outlaw it.
Well, they didn't want those immigrants to influence the natives.
Yeah, natives. Yeah. So by 1960s, in both America and the UK, weed became the new mainstream counterculture, where hippies, anti-war protesters, students, rock stars, and other celebrities seen it as a peaceful rebellion against conformity and authority, which is a fair summarization. In 1970, President Nixon passed the Controlled Substance Act, which classed cannabis as a Schedule 1 drug, and then it was essentially in the same bracket as heroin and cocaine. How... Again, obviously this is 50 years ago.
It goes back a little bit further, really, because it goes to the main thing that binds all the world's drug laws together is the United Nations conventions on drugs.
Right.
In particular, the single convention on narcotic drugs, which came in the 60s, really. and that kind of defined the scheduling of illegal drugs, and also united the world and all the signatories to this convention.
The war on drugs.
As to, well, no, this kind of predates it.
Right.
This is kind of more just uniting all the countries, and that, yeah, we're going to make all drugs illegal, and all signatories to the convention have to maintain that.
Right.
So even now in countries like Portugal and that have decriminalised all drugs, Netherlands that have decriminalised cannabis, they've decriminalised because if they changed the law, they'd be against the convention, they'd be in contravention of the convention. So they only decriminalise, so they still can be signatories to the convention, but allow...
Right, that's actually a really interesting point, because I never realised that. So you can decriminalise it, but if you legalise it, you're going against the...
Yeah, you can decriminalise the United Nations Convention on Drugs.
Right.
But you can decriminalise without changing the law. Essentially, that just comes down to the police turning a blind eye. The Dutch have a specific word for it. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it, but essentially it is just tolerance. It's kind of turning a blind eye.
Common sense on some level.
In Dutch law, it's neither legal or illegal. It's kind of just agreed in unison by society that they'll turn a blind eye to it.
Which has obviously helped out a lot in Portugal and anywhere else that's done this, because it actually went down. Usage went down. Yeah. Again, it's not cool to smoke what your nan's getting for her treatment. Do you know what I mean? It takes away the mystique.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that's when I started reading it, I thought, like obviously, whenever you read anything about America, straight away you know it's going to go weird pretty quick. But so obviously President Nixon signed the Substance Act in 1970. The UK shortly followed with the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971. Jersey soon after with the Misuse of Drugs Law 1978.
Yep.
So before then, it was kind of...
Well, no, looking back through Jersey law. Well, so if I go back to probably UK law, I think it became illegal in the UK in about 1928.
Right.
Cannabis, and I don't know when it became illegal in Jersey. The earliest law available online is the 1954 Dangerous Drugs Law, which refers to it as it was then known as Indian hemp. And
Indian hemp.
Yeah, that's what they called cannabis back then.
Right.
And that was illegal then. There was a previous drugs law in Jersey, the 1924 Loi sur le drogue dangereux, if I'm pronouncing that. But I don't know. That's in the archive. I haven't had an opportunity to go and look at that.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether there was any... At that point, I don't think it would have had cannabis in it, because that was 1924 and it only came into UK law in 1928. But there may have been a revision of the law between 1924 and 54 that introduced cannabis.
Yeah.
So I'd need to go into the Jersey archive and actually have a look at
because
when it became illegal in Jersey.
Like you say, it seems like the whole world acted at the same time. So obviously Nixon went in 1970, and then the UK a year later.
The Nixon 1970, that was the war on drugs. That was the beginning of the war.
That's the introduction of the war on drugs, and then it just became fucking ridiculous after that, because if you put, obviously we put it into, I believe, in the UK or Jersey. Jersey was weird. No, the UK was weird because it was first B, then it was C, then it jumped back up to B.
Yep.
Jersey, I'm not too sure. Is it B or C?
It's B. So we didn't follow... well, actually, there's two classes to cannabis in Jersey, and it was the same in the UK until a few years ago. So in Jersey law, as it currently stands, cannabis and cannabis resin, so the plant and the resin, are a Class B drug.
Right.
Cannibinol, so THC and its derivatives, so the psychoactive chemicals, are deemed a Class A drug. So in a cannabis oil,
right,
with THC in it, would be a Class A.
What, oil as in the oil, just the black oil? Or?
Yeah, so like a CBD oil with THC in it. So you're with a CBD oil, you're allowed 3% THC by weight of CBD. Right. So if you had 1,000 milligrams of CBD in a bottle, you could have legally 30 milligrams of THC, according to a law that came in a few years ago.
Right.
If you had 31 milligrams of THC in that bottle, that'd be a Class A drug.
Class A drug?
Yeah.
How the fuck do they justify that?
By 1 milligram, you can move from legal to Class A. So that was... This is the way the law's been for years. So what you were saying before about the UK was in the mid-noughties, the Labour government brought in reduced cannabis classification from Class B for cannabis and cannabis resin from Class B to Class C.
Yeah.
And they also scrapped the distinction about the cannabis oil and the THC aspects, and they became Class C as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years later, that got shifted back to Class B. So,
was that by a Tory government or the same government?
I think it was the same government. I can't remember.
What sense does that make? Like,
it was,
and the justification to turn around and say that something in its basically in its purest form, because oil is the pure form of cannabis. If you're looking to medicate yourself,
yeah,
obviously it's got psychoactive traits to it, but that's still a Class A. That's heroin and cocaine.
Yeah.
How can anyone justify that?
Well,
Especially
that's the thing.
now.
In the UK, they haven't got that. But Jersey and Guernsey never did the drop down from Class B to Class C, and never brought the THC elements in Class A down either. So we still, both Jersey and Guernsey, and I think Gibraltar as well, still have this Class A element, which the UK and nowhere else does.
Which would be vape oil.
Well, anything, an edible. So it's people who, we've had people during lockdown who've been buying stuff over the internet, off the dark web, and buying things like gummies that are quite popular in America now. You can get cannabis and all sorts in these legal states. But those edibles, because it's cannabis THC that's not in cannabis or cannabis resin, it's an edible, it's a gummy or something.
Yeah.
That's a Class A then.
That's fucking stupid.
Yeah. And so you've got a situation where a patient can have oils and flour now, but if they weren't a patient, they'd get done for a Class B and a Class A. It's all very messy now in our drugs laws, because we're making these distinctions. So I mentioned before how we now allow 3% THC by weight of CBD in our CBD oils. That theoretically is in contravention of the UN Convention on Drugs, because we've legalised the sale of a little bit of THC.
Right.
So it's all got quite messy.
It has to get mapped out. It has to, because otherwise someone's going to end up paying a hefty price for this, obviously. Well, they do with their freedom.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't make any sense. This is why I wanted you on the show, because to basically expose it's not necessarily hypocrisy, but the stupidity of it as well. Because there isn't, I say there isn't any, but there isn't much public backing to any of these laws. Do you know what I mean, in any way, shape or form?
No, but there's
on
not
the ground
much,
anyway.
There's not a huge amount groundswell of opposition either, because no one wants to stand up against it and basically admit that they break the law, potentially.
Well, that's where people like yourself come in and everyone else, because like I say now, public perception has switched, because now you only have to go to the police page and watch them get trolled every time they say, we caught, the last one, I think it was, someone got caught with £400 and I think it was like 10 grams or something fucking ridiculous. And every court case, this is what pissed me off about Jersey, is that is the definition of mass condemnation. But where everyone goes onto the JP, the police website, and the Bailiwick or wherever it is, and they say this is fucking ridiculous. Every single person. That doesn't mean that they take drugs themselves. It doesn't mean that they. Everyone's saying it's a waste of time and money. Normally,
but you're still only getting a snapshot of opinion there.
Oh, obviously, yeah. But then still, that would be classed as mass condemnation, because it's across the board. It's on different outlets. It's not necessarily just one. Every single person I've spoke to in the last 10 years, every single person has said this is draconian, it's stupid, it's outdated, no one supports it. It only takes one politician, like you say, with a backbone to stand up and say...
for a majority we need 25. That's the thing, you need a majority.
Yeah.
It's not just one. It's one to bring it in there, but you need a majority to vote something through.
So Monty spearheaded the medicinal side of things.
Yeah, so he introduced the proposition to legalise medicinal cannabis.
Right. And that was when, 2018?
Yeah, so that was November 2018. So that actually came to the States Assembly about the same time, or just after the week after the UK legalised medicinal cannabis. But Jersey went a step further in that it was allowed to be prescribed by anyone who could prescribe.
Oh, because
So
in
it's
the
not
UK there's
just-
only...
Yeah, in the UK, it's specifically only for for consultants on the specialist register.
Right.
Whereas in Jersey, it's for anyone who can prescribe. So that includes nurses, pharmacists, dentists. There's anyone who can prescribe could prescribe cannabis in Jersey.
From 2018?
Yeah. Well, the law came in the beginning of 2019, but yeah.
And then how many people that year, say 2019, do you know how many people actually got prescribed? If
No.
everyone... None?
No.
Not one?
Not one.
Why?
So essentially, over here, the GPs have been reluctant.
Right.
The primary care body that kind of oversees the island's GPs actually put out statements advising their members not to prescribe cannabis. Essentially, it came. My personal view is that it came down to a question of liability and insurance.
Right.
Doctors in GPs in Jersey, there's no ceiling to the amount that they could be sued for. So
Right.
in the UK, there's a limit to how much you can be sued, which caps off their insurance premiums and stuff like that. In Jersey, there isn't. The sky's the limit for how much you could sue a doctor over here. They don't want to take the risk. They probably can't afford the insurance to do that.
Sue for what,
So it was
though?
only with the introduction of these clinics that prescriptions actually started in the island, because I think they use a board process. So in one of the cannabis clinics now operating in the island, you go and see the consultant there. They make an opinion, and then they go to a board of all of the consultants
Yeah.
to actually make a final decision on whether you receive your prescription or not. And I think it's that additional buffer layer that probably makes it more palatable from a liability point of view.
When you say sued, as in sue for what? Like if there was an adverse
Or
reaction?
negligence, or adverse, or it's the unknown, isn't it?
But the same can be said about benzodiazepines or opiate-based thing. So,
but because this is slightly different though, because it's an unlicensed medicine.
right.
So it hasn't gone. You haven't kind of got the protection of I'm following the guidelines, because you're already off the script really.
Yeah,
with
so
an
it's
unlicensed
kind of
medication. So
it's a loophole.
yeah,
In a sense, it's a
Yeah.
loophole, right? So 2019, not one person, even though we got it from, so anyone who can prescribe could prescribe, which was better than the UK, because then over there it had to be a specialist, so we were actually in a better position, yet no one actually got it. What about 2020?
well, only with people. I'm aware of a couple of patients who were actually physically going over to the UK to the cannabis clinics
Yeah,
prior to the pandemic. And then since the pandemic, it was people importing it until the first clinic opened in October last year.
yeah. And then, because they're doing video consultations and then getting it sent over, and then they had the added stress of obviously getting it sent over, and the import license, I think they call it.
Yep.
And as well, because it was pretty, it was pretty expensive when people were starting to get it.
Yeah, the prices have certainly come down. I mean, that's one of the interesting things is I think when, looking back a year, there was probably only 1,000, 1,500 patients in the whole of the UK that perhaps were getting medicinal cannabis.
Is that it?
Yeah, and then I think at one point, because several hundred patients just from Jersey then suddenly jumped on the bandwagon last year, Jersey patients actually made up quite a significant portion of the UK's market.
Yeah, I read that somewhere as well. Yeah, I read that.
Which was quite phenomenal.
No, but that's a good title to have. Do you know what I mean? Because again, with everything, you have to move it forward as much as you can.
And even still, it's now the estimates. I saw an estimate the other day that was still only around 4,000 patients in the entirety of the UK. We're probably getting on for 750 here in Jersey. You've got another 250 in Guernsey. So that's 1,000 in the Channel Islands.
And that's when you take into account the population. So there's 68 million people in the UK
Exactly.
or something.
The Channel Islands make up a huge proportion of the wider UK's
we're
medicinal cannabis patient cohort.
We're only 200,000 people together, roughly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's crazy to think. But then
Yeah,
a
so
step in
it
the right
has kind
direction.
of been pioneering in a way.
Yeah.
For Channel Island patients to, and why we've got 3 clinics. There's only 5 clinics in the UK with various offshoot branches. We've got 3 clinics in Jersey.
Just in Jersey alone.
Yeah.
So how would that, for people watching, because obviously, how would that process work if you were thinking about getting it for whatever reason if you were thinking about getting prescribed medicinal cannabis? How would that work? What would the process be?
So you don't need to be forwarded on from your GP.
Right.
You can access the clinics directly. There's 3 clinics operating in Jersey. So there's the Medical Cannabis Clinics Jersey, which is a branch of the UK clinic. There's also Medican, and there's also Seceda Medical. So those are the 3 main ones. Essentially, there are a number of qualifying conditions, but generally you will have had to have tried 2 other medications first that haven't worked for you. So now you're trying medicinal cannabis.
Oh, so you have to try 2 other things that are not cannabis related. Right, right.
So you've tried 2 different pain, you've got a pain condition. You've tried 2 different pain condition medications. They haven't worked for you. Then you can go to the medicinal cannabis clinic. They'll request access to your medical records to verify your history. And then if you meet the criteria and they're happy, then they'll prescribe you.
So do they prescribe just flower, or do they prescribe oil, or how's it?
Either or. It depends on the condition and the patient. For pain conditions, they seem to prescribe flower products,
Right.
because that can provide you with immediate pain relief.
Right.
You're not allowed to smoke the flower. You have to use a vaporizer.
Yeah, I've seen this somewhere. So you're not allowed to actually light it?
No, it's illegal. As I said before, that's what brought me into emailing Monty Tadje at the beginning of 2019, was the confusion of what it means. You're going to arrest someone for smoking their medication. But no, you have to vape it. So you buy a vaporizer, which is essentially a mini oven, that just heats it just before it burns.
Right.
And all the compounds are released in the vapor. So different to a liquid nicotine vape.
Right.
It's a dry herb vaporizer. You take your flower, pop it in,
because there was a thing just before Corona, funny enough, where again going back to America, there was teenagers in America. They're putting oil into the vape, and they were getting a respiratory thing, so it was settling on their lungs and becoming oil. It was a THC vape. Yeah.
But I think they were using vitamin E as one of the ingredients. I can't remember exactly why.
Yeah.
And it was that was having an adverse effect on.
I think it was to break it down in some way, shape, or form, or make it
kind of additive to.
As you say, that vape is made for thingies, e-juice or whatever they call it. The components THC won't break down the way they're meant to, and they ended up with just the oil on their lungs. And then that was another fear-mongering thing where they turned around and said, "Oh, it's cannabis killing people," and you're like, "It's not." No. But so obviously that was from 2019 to now, because we're only 2021. It's actually gone leaps and bounds.
Oh yeah.
And it's because of people like you and Danny and other people behind the scenes that have actually kept this at the forefront, and as well, actually released information that's viable, that's actually easily digestible as well. Same thing with like the many uses for hemp and CBD, and like from building materials to to everything else, which is obviously a good thing. It's just still frustrating for someone like myself. I don't smoke weed. Do you know what I mean? I haven't done in a while. I was sick of getting my fucking door kicked off at 5:30 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? But but even when I did, like I said, you end up in court and you stand there going, really, and even 10 years ago, I think it was when I was last in court for it. You still stand there and you're like, am I actually standing in court next to all the other fucking people that and now the connection that people are making, because people are so emotive about, our leniency towards sex offenders and our draconian, measures towards people who smoke weed.
The disparity in sentencing is horrendous over here.
It's come at the perfect time, because obviously when Cheyenne done the higher sentences for paedophiles sort of thing and started bringing it to the forefront and constantly commenting, and everyone else, gets on board. And then when this sort of thing comes in as well, you're naturally gonna make that connection. You're gonna sit there and say, but as a judge, it stops your discretion. Do you know what I mean? To sentence people. Now you're telling us a lot about your moral compass. If you think that a person sitting in his gaff, eating quavers, smoking weed, is more dangerous than someone grooming a kid, that is basically what but it is. It's ABC. That's the way people look at it. And I'm glad that they do as well, because these people should be, questioned about why they do that. Because, again, like I say, you only have to look at any page nowadays and see the police getting trolled for, arresting people for this shit. And the sentences as well are a joke.
But there's a few different things there. When it comes to sentencing, I mean, obviously you have a separation between politicians and the judiciary.
Yeah.
So you can't really lobby your politicians to change sentencing structures, because they have no influence on
But they can back it.
judiciary. But yeah, it's interesting to know how, you know, politicians or the people can lobby to change sentencing guidelines and influence guidelines so that, you know, sentencing is reflective of what the people want.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, a fake democracy.
Same with the police as well, because the Home Affairs Minister a couple of times has said that he has no influence on the operations of the police.
Len Norman.
Yeah. And his predecessor as well, Christina Moore, said the same thing in scrutinies. And so how do we... I understand we need the separation.
Yeah.
But at the same token, then how do you actually change processes if you have that separation? You know what I mean? There seems a bit of a disconnect there.
Well, the politicians are supposed to represent the people and the police are supposed to protect them.
Yeah.
So it seemed obvious to me that, let's be totally honest, who are they protecting by locking up people who are smoking weed? No one, really, right? And the whole... I mean, we're long gone past the weed being a gateway drug. The only gateway to drugs is trauma. We know that now. Do you know what I mean? So in all its, nightmarish scenarios, whether it be abuse or anything, we know that. We know that, weed is weed. And again, like you said before, if you take away the mystique of it and the bad boy thing of it, most people, it drops, especially with teens and young people. Because again, if you see your dad taking something and it's not, like a hip-hop video of a bunch of people smoking weed and stuff like that, when it's taken out of that sort of context, it's not as, you're not going to want it no more. It's not romanticised no more. It's not the outlaw thing. And let's be honest, kids are kids. They're going to do the next best thing anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's just the way it is. But no, I understand that there has to be a separation between politics and obviously the way the police are run.
Yeah,
but
just how can we change it?
But the police aren't blind. They must see all this stuff online. They must see everyone turn around and going, "What are you doing?" Do you know what I mean? Again, there's no support. Or do they care? Like, that's the thing. Cause
some do and some don't. It seems that I think
a
lot
easy
of
thing.
Police officers do go in with very kind of idealistic views, you know, wanting to change things, want to improve things, see that drugs are bad, and they're taking dealers off the streets and they're doing great work. But then you've got organisations like LEAP, which is law enforcement action. Something. It's a group. Yeah, it's a UK organisation that's former police officers that have been on the front line and just are sickened by what they've done. Really, that they haven't solved the situation. They, in some cases, have made things worse by taking out a drug dealer, and then you've just left a void that more vicious drug dealers come in their place in a lot of situations.
Well, that always happens, whether that's any drug. But the thing is the danger would be if it's a heroin dealer or a coke dealer or whatever, you can understand the thing, because obviously these things destroy lives. Even when it's a weed dealer, even now public perception is sitting there and going, and what? No one cares. Do you know what I mean? Is this even a news story anymore? Because people have shifted to the point where, again, we were saying before, like, sometimes we mirror like America and the UK and stuff, and because obviously we're all connected now via the internet, it's not like it was 10, 20 years ago. Yeah. And we see people in America and how they've benefited massively from making it. Is it legal or is it decriminalised?
Different 17 states have now legalised cannabis.
Right.
Completely recreational and medicinal. I think 33 have legalised medicinal.
Right. So again, we see that sort of stuff.
At federal level, it's illegal.
Yeah, because I remember watching a thing last year. Just that there was a few dispensaries before the pandemic, and they said we don't know what to do with our money in the safe. Because state tax we can pay, but federal tax they won't take it. So now the money's just building up, and the federal government can't take it because
it's not only that, they can't bank it.
Yeah,
because it's federally illegal.
So
sooner no banks will take it.
They're gonna have to legalise it across the board on a federal.
Well, there's been propositions brought in the American houses, representatives and Senate to allow banking at least.
Yeah.
The Safe Banking Act.
So it's not like proceeds of crime.
Well, yeah. It's kind of getting around that and at least allowing the banking so these companies aren't just sat there with tons of cash.
It seems like they go the long way around everything for no reason whatsoever. We've got great ways.
It's trying to deal with the shit from years ago, isn't it? It's kind of it's left a shit show and then trying to tidy up each bit individually rather than addressing the whole lot.
Because in the last 50 years, obviously, a lot of other things have, moved forward and changed, and other laws have been attached to other laws. And like I say, you have to sort of unwind it at the same time. So
needs unpicking every once in a while.
Yeah,
reset.
But then again, like I say, that at least, like you say, if there's that many patients getting it over here and in Guernsey, do they receive it in Guernsey? The same as Jersey. That's testament in itself that not only people need it, but that at least if the police are watching, take that into account. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not. I just don't understand how they justify the amount of money they spend on doing what they do, and again, you have to have a cause and effect. You have to weigh it up. Is the person that's smoking weed in his house illegally or not, or whatever, or putting a flame to their legally?
They're medicinal.
Yeah, they're medicinal. Is that crime? Bad enough for you to go and take their door off the hinges and then take them to court and drag them through the system for what? And how much does that
prevent
cost?
them from travelling or from
getting a job anything like that? Is it really justified? That's the question that needs to be asked.
That proportionality is not there.
No, not at all.
There is, especially when over here they're talking about putting children first and all that, and the majority of people who receive drug convictions are 18 to 24 years old. There are young people, tarnishing them for life with a drugs record for a little bit of pot or whatever is no way protecting children.
No.
There was no sense. I know of no logical reason, reasonable reason why cannabis should be illegal.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I think that most people agree with you. I can't think in the. I mean, fair enough. I wouldn't say that I know a massive range of people, but I do know a range of people, and even, the politicians I've met and stuff like that. Even they have sort of the same attitude. But again, like I say, maybe that is the secret to this this problem is trying to match up the relationship between the Home Affairs Minister and the police and how he can. Again, he's our representative, so rightfully or wrongfully, he should be detailing what we want to the police to a degree.
Oh yeah.
Not that you can change it, but at the same time, again, they can't miss it. We live in 2021. So
if you live in the UK, you've got the police and policy crime official or commissioners, policing commissioners anyway, who are elected by the public and then kind of guide policing policy in the different constabularies across the UK. And then you've got individual chiefs of police in Durham and Wales who advocate for diversionary policies for drug possession rather than arrest. So, it's very much, it would just take the police to stop arresting people, or the centenaries, who are the prosecuting officers, to stop actually dealing with it at parish hall inquiry. It is within their discretion under their guidelines to dismiss cases.
So hypothetically, what avenue do you think that people can go down? Who can they write to? Who can they say? To basically stop that madness, basically.
It's always welcome to email your state's members. But things are actually in train that can provide us with opportunities to chip in and influence policy. So at the moment, there's a draft crime law that's unfortunately been held up quite a bit by the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It was mainly about prejudice, and but there's a small element to that crime law that brings in fines at parish hall inquiries.
Right.
So it specifically introduces for the repeat possession of Class B and C drugs a flat fine of £200.
So that's it, just a flat fine, that's it?
Yeah.
No court date, no...
Exactly.
Right.
By not having a court date or anything, that's essentially decriminalisation. Yes, you're still getting a fine. You're not getting a criminal record, and that is the key aspect. Decriminalisation, you can still receive fines.
Well, that is the goal, to get to decriminalisation.
And ideally without a fine.
Well, you can't have everything.
But when this comes to the States Assembly and goes through scrutiny, that provides us with opportunities to go, well, why even bother with a fine? If they're a repeat offender, what's the point of fining them? Because the very nature of it is... Well,
it's self-explanatory. I mean, if they're not going to stop.
Yeah.
If it's, So now, as it stands, Jersey, it's still a Class C.
Class
drug.
B.
Class B.
Class B, but so under the guidelines, there was the first Attorney General guidelines for perishable inquiries in 1998, which suggested written caution for first-time offence of possession of Class B or C drugs.
Right.
In 2015, that was updated for first-time possession of any drugs with specific limits of amount. So that was up to 15 grams of cannabis. On your first offence, you'd get a written caution. In 2019, that was updated to a second offence as well.
Right.
So we're gradually, and now this draft crime law is now suggesting that instead of those written cautions, we bring in a fine for repeat offence. So you can see that we are slowly progressing away from criminalising it. We are moving on a path towards decriminalisation. So it's a case of now, as this crime law comes back to the States, presumably later this year, that could provide us the people, an opportunity to influence our state's members to actually question this. Now, if we are having a fine, why is it £200? Surely it would be better if it was actually means tested.
Yeah.
Because, for some people, 200 quid is just, they're not going to notice it. Other people are going to severely notice that.
Oh, yeah, obviously,
But why are we fining anyway? And then it's only for, this fining thing's only for Class B and C drugs. But what about the guy who's just brought in his 4% THC oil?
Yeah.
So it provides an opportunity to question that as well.
Which is all what they should be doing.
Yeah, ideally, but they will require prompting to ask the correct questions and prompt them. But also, at the same time as all this, we've got this draft crime law coming through. We've also got the new drug and alcohol strategy being developed at the moment.
Yeah,
there will be a public consultation for that in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Which provides us all with a huge opportunity to actually let the government know what we think of the drug and alcohol strategy and whether we should be looking at alternatives like diversionary policies and decriminalisation.
Because
so the two tie together beautifully. And then when you have the backdrop of the amount of medicinal users, you're going to smell it everywhere in the island this summer. You've also got the companies cultivating it. And you've now got investors now being able to, with the new proceeds of crime law amendment coming through, potential for investors to invest in these companies. It becomes an anachronism to still, if you haven't got the prescription piece of paper, oh no, you're
so
a criminal.
It makes sense for everything to, all the ducks are in a row, so to speak. Because that's what Gary Burgess asked LaFondre recently, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And is it a health minister? Is it the health minister?
No, LaFondre's the chief minister, but the health minister was there as well, Richard.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Because he asked him basically what's going on. Even the fact that it's on, it's out there. It's a conversation to be had. It is progress, and like you say, the other things that are coming up as well, that's progress. But
yeah, their responses were very interesting because they suggested progress. It was the first time they hadn't mentioned aspects such as the island's reputation and health concerns. It was more, it's just a matter of time. Yeah. They all said it, all four of them on that panel, that it was just a matter of time. Which obviously, with the backdrop of, the proceeds of crime legislation, they're obviously getting, the cultivation licensing in these companies, it's on the ministerial agenda. So they're aware of it, they've been talking about it, and I think they're starting to thaw. Could
you expand on that, the proceeds of crime thing? What's that? Is that so that people can invest without actually getting done for being drug dealers, basically?
Yes, exactly. So the issue there was if you wanted to invest in a cannabis company outside the island, so a Canadian medicinal cannabis company, you couldn't do that at the present time because those, in the wording of the law, because that activity is deemed illegal in Jersey law, those funds,
the proceeds
could be deemed to be proceeds of crime. In Guernsey, a couple of months ago, they actually released guidelines to say that investment in medicinal cannabis companies is okay because that is legal in Guernsey, but they only did that in guidelines. They didn't put it in law.
Right.
Jersey's now submitted a law change to go before the States, I think at the next assembly or a bit later, to bring in a law to change the proceeds of crime, well, an amendment to the proceeds of crime law to allow investment in cannabis companies where that business is legal in the originating country, which would include a recreational company, cannabis company in Canada.
Oh, so you could invest in a dispensary as well?
I think so.
Right.
That's just my reading of it.
I've got no
I'm
money,
not a
don't
lawyer,
worry.
but yeah, so that's, but especially putting it in law as well. I mean, Guernsey just had it in guidelines, and they've had major investments from some really large players in the last couple of months. Big companies setting up Guernsey operations. And Jersey can now hopefully get on that bandwagon. And just anecdotally, I've heard more interest from investors in Jersey or in Jersey businesses in the last couple of weeks as a consequence, I believe, of that legislation coming in.
Money talks, basically.
Yeah, that's the only reason all of this change is now happening. You know, we've all been banging the drum for years about cannabis and how we should change the law. No one listened at all. But then you had kind of CBD start coming through, which had a lot of money and investment with it, and then the medicinal side's coming through, and there's a lot of money and investment and interest behind that as well. It's money that's driving this, which is sickening to a lot of people within the movement, because they don't want capitalism involved, they don't want business involved, they want people to just be able to grow their own sod business and be done with it. But that's not the reality of the world, really.
Yeah, it's not realistic to think that way.
Ideally, we'll get to a future whereby, you'll be able to grow your own. Some people will grow together in cooperatives, who might have a social club kind of thing. But you're going to end up with your Budweiser version of weed as well. You know, it's inevitable. You're going to have you're going to have your craft beers, your craft grow kind of stuff, and you're going to have your big market stuff. You're just going to have the whole spectrum. So to try and just say we only want one type of market is, you know.
But talking to you now, there's more hope on the horizon than what I had, 50 minutes ago, because no, genuinely, because I thought now we can sort of narrow it down that there's a separation here between the law in Jersey and the way that people see and act and see this as not a drug, as more of a medicine. Politicians are obviously coming around to for whatever reason, whether it be money or whatever, who cares, as long as they're coming
education.
around.
I mean, if you've never had any experience of it and you've only been exposed to the news and the propaganda of 50, 70 years of
you're going to believe in Reefer Madness.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you've never been shown any different. So it's understandable from the onslaught of shit that's been put out there that people that are kind of have misjudgments about it.
Because there has been a lot of shit about cannabis, like a whole melee of absolute bollocks that doesn't mean anything.
Well, even today, you still, one of the main concerns is the incidence of psychosis. But really, to get one, I think the numbers are to get one instance of psychosis, you'd have to look at 20,000 regular cannabis users. So, the numbers are hyped up. It's made to sound far worse than it actually is. When it's very, very small percentages and figures. And those people who are susceptible will generally be from using it as an adolescent. Well, if it was legal, you wouldn't have adolescent use, or minimal adolescent use at least.
A hell of a lot less. Put it that way. So. Yeah, they're people kind of go, think of the kids as the reason why it should be illegal, but really think of the kids is the reason it should be legal. Yeah, the exact same reason as we said before, because obviously when you take away the outlaw thing, kids don't gravitate towards it. It's as simple as that. Kids are going to be kids. Well, obviously on the horizon, things are looking up. So again, it's not as bad as what I thought it was, but it is. It's almost as if. We're making progress in one area, societal, political, and everything else, but then the law. Like, the police have still got a hard-on for anyone who smells like weed, which is fucking insane, because sooner or later that's going to come to a crash and halt, because, again, the public just won't buy it anymore, because it's ridiculous, it's draconian, it's outdated, no one gives a shit about it. But within the realms of, like, politics and stuff like that, and how Jersey's moving forward, because you can't deny it, do you think that there's any, other than Monty, obviously, is there anyone else that you spoke to, or you don't have to say if you don't, want to. Is there anyone else that's been receptive to?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look back at the proposition itself, the medicinal cannabis proposition, so there's 4 parts to that, which I think, memory serves me rightly, kind of range from the specific cannabis medicines like Sativex, through to individual cannabinoids, through to the plant itself. And they were all voted through individually, and they all passed.
Right.
With reducing numbers. When you got to the last one, just cannabis, raw cannabis itself, I think that got through with like 27 votes or something. So still a majority, but not kind of 40 odd or whatever. But obviously that's only medicinal cannabis, and, you know, moving further than that, decriminalisation, legalisation, there's far less that would support that. But I like to think that there's probably a dozen that would straight off the bat support decriminalisation, legalisation now. And perhaps another 10 or so of those who voted for medicinal who could perhaps be persuaded. But it's touch and go whether it would be majority. So with the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey campaign, the original plan last year was to put together a paper petition and present that to the states. So we're familiar with e-petitions, the online ones. You have to get 5,000 signatures for it to be considered to be taken to the States Assembly. A paper petition only requires 1 signature, and that goes, with the support of a States member, goes straight into a debate in the States Assembly. So that was the idea, that we'd do that. It obviously would have required quite a bit of work to actually put together a report and proposition in support, so, you know, we could hand that Jersey politician everything they needed to run with it. But the confidence really, you know, thinking about it as time went on, didn't feel the confidence was there to actually, that we would get the majority. And if you didn't get the majority, you could set things back a couple of years, because, we just talked about it a couple of years ago, we're not talking about it again.
It'd be left on the
sideline. So it kind of
again.
became too risky to go down that route. And plus the whole pandemic, it kind of screwed up trying to do any type of protesting or...
But that's the thing, weirdly, you've actually come leaps and bounds throughout the pandemic, which is crazy to think, because you'd think that when you start, what was it, last May that you started? You'd have thought that this would have been, you know, like, because obviously, like you say, people have been talking about this for years. You'd have thought the pandemic would have, but maybe because people are at home and people are a bit more, like, you know, focused, because it has gone massive, like, especially over here, especially like you say, for the amount of people in Jersey, what 100,000 or 120,000, whatever it is. If we're making up the vast majority of more than, you know, per capita than the mainland, that's crazy to think. That's, you know, a testament in itself. So there is a hell of a lot more support than what people even, I think, give it credit for. And obviously people like yourself who are pushing this, you know, like, you're obviously not going to stop. This is, you know, like, your passion. Do you know what I mean?
Gone this far.
And again, like I say, I mean, it is one of them where I think people now are turn around and thinking that it doesn't make any logistical sense politically or, you know, throughout, you know, the law as well. Like I say, if it was just a flat, you know, you're getting fined 200 quid, you'll take that on the chin, and then you can start questioning it. Then you can start saying, well, why 200 quid? Why, you know?
Because you're not going to be criminalised for it, so you're in a position to be able to
to question it. And
that's the main problem over here, I think, is lots of people don't want to put their head up above the parapet. So
we spoke about America. Obviously, they've what do you say? Was it 17 states that have legalised it, and it's up to, was it an ounce or a pound that you can walk around with, or something?
It varies from state to state. Some of them,
So they've actually been pretty good in this area. Where else in Europe have legalised it or decriminalised it?
So decriminalised, well, Netherlands is the obvious one. Spain. You
can grow your own in Spain.
Yeah, it kind of varies because they got their different jurisdictions within Spain. I'm not sure if it's just jurisdictionally, like Catalonia that allows it, Barcelona. I know Basque
I think
does
it is
as well, but I'm not sure whether it's a countrywide thing. Portugal's obviously decriminalised all drugs. Switzerland is legal for up to 1% THC, and they're doing a trial with existing cannabis users to supply them recreationally, and doing a trial at the moment. Luxembourg are talking about legalising it potentially next year. Where else? Germany's quite relaxed. there's some southern European countries, I think maybe Czech, yeah. There's several countries looking at it in different ways.
That's what I'm saying, that the world seems to be moving at the same sort of...
Well, I think a major one, some of these countries were already in train last year. The end of the last year, there was a meeting of the United Nations on drugs. It had been put off for over a year to make a decision on cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the UN kind of controls world drug laws.
Yeah.
Up until 10 years ago, when any country tried to make an alteration to the UN drug conventions, America put its foot down, veto. If you don't, comply with this, America would cut off their funding, kind of thing.
Yeah. Blackmail, basically.
Yeah, but then as in the last 10 years or so, as more states have legalised, they couldn't really hold that position anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2018, the UN commissioned the World Health Organization to undertake its first study ever on cannabis, and then report back to the United Nations with their report so they could make recommendations. So the United Nations made a really good report. It's bloody long, 120 pages or so, but superb.
Yeah.
And you read that and they don't have a problem with it. But it then all got politicised, and international politics is a messy affair. And they watered down their recommendations. And those recommendations ended up going to a vote at the UN in December. Only one of the recommendations went through, which was to basically the UN drugs classification goes from 1 to 4,
mm-hmm.
with 4 being 1, 2, 3, but then 4 is actually higher than 1.
Right.
Don't know why. But it removed cannabis from Schedule 4.
Right.
So it still was in Schedule 1, but Schedule 4 was very much, it has no medicinal use. So basically the UN admitted that cannabis has medicinal use in December last year. And I think that's now encouraged more countries to now open up medicinal cannabis legislation. So you've got countries like Morocco currently passing medicinal cannabis cultivation legislation, and various others that are suddenly jumping on the bandwagon now that the UN has softened its...
But it's also the UN who makes it harder for you to legalise it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's still illegal, but at least now the UN admits it has medicinal use.
That's what I want to get into next, because obviously everyone knows that there is, it is a medicine for many, many thousands of people. I'm not going to go too much into the cancer thing and stuff like that, because that's still open to debate. There's no actual... You can't get evidence because it's a Schedule 1 drug.
Yeah, there hasn't been the studies, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No one's been allowed to study because it's illegal.
So the obviously back in the day there was obviously like Rick Simpson and things like that, and there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of people saying that
anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, but this is the problem. It's classed as anecdotal because there isn't a genuine definitive study behind it, because you can't study it because it's a Schedule 1 drug. So how long do you think before they'll actually start, or can they, start actually using it and testing it in a proper way in regards to cancer and other things, other serious...
Well, they're starting to open up research. So UK has issued quite a few medicinal cannabis cultivation research licenses.
Mm-hmm.
And America, I was only a thing the other day, they only ever used to have one university that was allowed to provide the cannabis for medicinal cannabis research,
right,
or for any cannabis research.
Oh yeah,
from the 60s right through, I think the University of Mississippi.
Yeah,
and it was the crappiest, shittest weed you've ever seen.
It was basically just shite, wasn't it? It wasn't even... How much THC did it have in there?
Bugger all.
Yeah.
But it's only the last couple of weeks the Drug Enforcement Administration in America has actually allowed other cultivators to enter the market to provide cannabis for research. A higher quality, a more realistic quality of actually what's out there. So it's little details like that. I mean, Israel's done a huge amount of research from the 60s onwards, really.
Was it when they
pioneered it?
When they the first... Was it you that said the first research into cannabinoid receptors?
Yeah.
In the body, yeah.
Yeah, so in the 1940s, scientists isolated and discovered CBD.
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't until 1964 that THC was isolated, and then it wasn't until the 1990s that they found the receptors in the human body. The CB1 receptor, I think, in 1990, and the CB2 receptor in 1993, which form part of the endogenous cannabinoid system, or inherent cannabinoid system within the human body, which is in all vertebrates, fish, amphibians.
So for someone like me who's a
birds.
bit fucking dumb, like, what is an endocannabinoid receptor?
So we got two specific cannabinoid receptors have been found. There's suggestions of a third one as well. They're found throughout the body. The CB1 receptor, I believe, is the one that kind of is in the brain that the THC affects and is the psychoactive one.
Right.
Whereas I think CBD is the CB2. Not entirely sure.
Don't worry about it, yeah.
I think that's about right. But essentially, we have natural chemicals within the human body. Our natural endogenous cannabinoids. Anandamide is one. I think 2-AG is another.
Right.
That have been only really found since the 1990s. And they're responsible for things like the runner's high. That was kind of originally put down to endorphins, but they're now realising that that's actually a response of the cannabinoid system. So the cannabinoid system, they generally kind of believe sort of helps with homeostasis. So it helps keep the body in balance.
Right.
So there's an idea that fibromyalgia is actually a disruption of the endocannabinoid system, and therefore you need to up your cannabinoid intake to seek balance and reduce your fibromyalgia. That's still a theory, but these are the kind of things that...
But a massive amount of people who suffer from that take cannabis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, it's still quite new research, so this system's only discovered in the 1990s. It's still not taught about in any real
but it can't be, can it?
In medical schools.
Because they probably won't waste their time, because again, they still see it as a Schedule 1 drug, and they think it's
Well, they're not being educated about it to find out otherwise.
Yeah, and lack of education, obviously.
Yes, but that's even, you could perhaps understand older doctors not having the education, even younger doctors going through now and not being educated in the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
Which specialists in the field will judge to be a really fundamental aspect of health and of our body's biology.
So am I saying it right? Endocannabinoid?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
ECS.
ECS, right. So we'll call it ECS from now on. So we don't have a alcohol receptor, we don't have a opioid receptor, we don't have
not sure.
but that would tell me and anyone else watching that it's been around for a long time.
Well, it's not so much that. It's more that the cannabinoids in the cannabis plant mimic chemicals within our body.
Yeah, which would tell me that it's not a bad thing. No, because obviously it's there for a reason.
Well, no. Well, I mean, yeah, it's the way it works. There's no recorded deaths from using cannabis. It's
I seen somewhere the other day. It's the only way you can die from cannabis if someone dropped 1,400 pounds on your head, which again, that's another thing that's needs to be
I'm all right for that.
addressed constantly, because that does my head in, because that alone should stand alone as there's no overdose. How many drug overdoses do we have a year? Do you know what I mean? Or drink related deaths, or every death that you can think of, fathom, and especially in America where it's still a Schedule 1. So the amount of cocaine deaths, heroin deaths, meth, and then you've got cannabis sitting by the side going, never done any of that. Do you know what I mean? Or caused any of the horror that all three of them drugs cause every single day.
Yeah.
And destroy lives, literally. I mean, there might be an argument, do you know what I mean, that a teenager's going to sit in his room, play PlayStation games, eat quavers, and smoke all day. Wow. That's just the guy that's not doing anything wrong. Give him meth, that's a totally different story. Give him coke, that's a totally different story, as well as heroin.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so infantile to think that drug should be sitting alongside them. It's it'd be comical if it wasn't so dangerous.
Yeah.
But again, it's an outdated idea. But the endocannabinoid, EC, was it EC?
ECS.
ECS, yeah. So ECS, so now that's being studied on some level. And did you say it's, was it Israel that started it first?
Yeah, Dr. Raphael Mechoulam.
Right.
He's the kind of godfather of cannabis research. He's still going. He's
Really?
still working in the industry, and
See, he'd be one of them that lives to 150, and he's probably been taking it for a long time.
quite possibly.
So what's your thoughts on how... well, no, that's what I wanted to ask you, actually. Was it Canada that legalised it recreationally, before America?
Well, America hasn't done it as a country yet.
Yeah, but it's Toronto. No, is it Toronto? In Canada?
Vancouver,
that's it. And
I'm not sure about individually like that. Canada was essentially the second country to legalise, the first being Uruguay.
So, recreationally? Legalises
legalises everything.
Yeah, so everything, yeah. So, and, because I can't remember the number now, it was in the billions, actually. The first year, the tax revenue they got off that was in the billions. I don't know how that transpires to Jersey, because I don't really understand that side of it, but if Jersey were to decriminalise it and make it, could you have a dispensary if you decriminalise it?
No, not really.
Right.
You couldn't have... Well, you certainly couldn't take tax.
Ah.
You could feasibly have... Like in Spain, in Barcelona, you have the social clubs. It's still legal and everything. It's decriminalised, but you have to be a member. I think you have to be a local. You have to have a Spanish identity card or whatever to be able to access those clubs. Whether something like that, like the coffee shops in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's the front of the shop for the customer to buy cannabis is decriminalised and allowed. The back of the shop where the coffee shop buys it in, that's all black market.
Oh.
So whether it could be allowed, but it would still be very grey, if not still black market.
When they talk about, I mean, again, this might be a dumb question, but when they talk about the tax revenue they're going to make off this, they're essentially they're essentially talking about patients.
No, they're talking about the companies.
Oh, the companies, right? Who
so
grow
there's no intention of taxing patients.
Right.
Although at the moment, because it's an unlicensed medication, patients are charged GST on their medicinal cannabis, which is far from ideal, really. But the current in the government plan and everything, talking about the taxation of cannabis is just talking about the industry. So the profits of companies in the medicinal cannabis industry, Northern Leaf, etc., will be charged at 20% tax.
So the company will be charged 20% tax, and it's up to the company how much they sell it for to the patient.
It's on their profits. So,
right. Because I thought that with the proceeds of crime thing, no, I suppose actually because then they're investing in the company, aren't they? Yeah, I get it. So we're a long way off from decriminalisation. Yeah. But
to be honest, decriminalisation, no. I think decriminalisation will, fingers crossed, happen before the next election, within the next 12 months.
Okay, just going off topic now, do you have hopes for the next election in this regard? Obviously, because this is your baby, this is your thing, this is, between you and a few other people. This is what you've nurtured for a long time. Do you have hope that the next election is going to, bring this progress?
Hopefully through what I was saying before about the substance misuse strategy, the public consultation of that, the draft crime law, hopefully those can bring us to a stage where we have cannabis decriminalised in the island, so that it is no longer a criminal offence for possession.
Right.
It might still be a fine. It might be if you're caught with 50 grams or whatever, you'd still go to court, whatever. Yeah. There might still be grey areas.
They'll put a cap on it.
Yeah. Getting at least that first bit of decriminalisation. And then with the elections next year, in June next year, it's very much a case that the focus of the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey campaign will be electioneering and lining up to address all candidates, question them all, raise it at various hustings, and to make it an election issue.
It should be. And especially in 2021.
To get it high on the agenda.
Well, 2022 when they have the elections,
Yeah, unfortunately, the only bugger about the elections over here is they only actually release... the nominations are only 4 weeks before the election. So the majority of candidates will not be known until 4 weeks before, which gives a very short window
to actually address them.
Do anything.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to start earlier in the new year. I know the Progress Party, the new party, they mentioned that they're going to start lobbying from the beginning of 2022 for the election. And there's certainly pressure that we can put on them and Reform Jersey and any other candidates, whether they're existing members or perhaps new candidates that we can identify as they come, about, and start addressing them.
Well, Monty is part of Reform, isn't he?
Yeah.
So surely they're up to date on this in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I mean, they are in favour of medicinal cannabis, and I believe that they're in favour of recreational as a party and individually, but they have not yet made it a manifesto point and have not made a particular party position known on,
But if they
on
call
cannabis or
themselves
drugs.
if they call themselves progressive, then they have to kind of go down that road, don't they? Because that is yeah.
Well, ideally, yeah. But obviously, you've got to kind of play within the audience.
The realms of
Jersey
politics.
is a very conservative island, but fortunately, this issue is kind of progressing quite quickly.
And it's long overdue.
Yeah.
So it's them two things that run together. So it's long overdue, and it's progressing really quickly for, let's say people like you, Danny, and everyone else behind the scenes, because it won't stop now. It's gone too far.
I just wanted to say, because you're talking about sort of me and Danny and that before, but there's been a number of people that have been lobbying the states for years and
feel free to give them a
behind,
shout out, man.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They know who they are, and we wouldn't be here without their work. Behind the scenes and taking it to states members and the health department, and it's.
So what other does it for people who, again, I have to take it back because I have to ask questions that people who aren't in the know or never smoked it or never been anywhere around it or even had the conversation with people about it. I'm sure that most people, 99% of people anyway, would have heard about the medicinal benefits of cannabis.
Yeah.
But obviously from growing up when I did, and obviously when you did as well, it was seen as just it wasn't even a drug really. It was just having a joint wasn't like taking drugs.
Well, I kind of put it in the same vein as having a cup of tea most of the time.
Huh?
I put it in the same vein as having a cup of tea most of the time.
Well,
it's
not, basically, yeah. And that's the that's how far removed we are from the police in some ways. Because if you think that you're playing a hero and knocking down doors and stuff to save people from this evil plant, you are literally the person who wrote Reefer Madness. You're off your head. Do you know what I mean? But like going back to the actual reasons for medicinal cannabis, for people who don't know, what is it treating? What is it used for? Like, I know there's a range.
It's a wide range of conditions. I mean, that's the thing with the endogenous cannabinoid system. It's it's prevalent throughout our bodies. It's responsible for kind of regulating our systems overall. So there's a huge variety of ailments that it does help. A lot of it's only anecdotally. There hasn't been sufficient research to actually properly prove it. Migraines being a good example, that it's widely anecdotally known that it helps migraines, but there's very little evidence scientifically yet that it helps migraines.
Yeah.
But it's
fast.
It's the main ones that people are using it seem to be for pain, for anxiety,
Sleep.
Yeah, for sleep, depression.
I've seen actually a study recently, not a study, but a thing recently where they said that they're microdosing people with depression. Again, with to counteract that imbalance that you were talking about before. And as well, but the main thing is as well, in America, you see it massively with people who are going through chemotherapy and stuff.
Nausea relief from chemotherapy is a major one.
Because obviously that is a byproduct of the treatment.
Spasticity, so multiple sclerosis, and other conditions. Parkinson's. There's been incredible videos of people with Parkinson's that are shaking like mad, and then a couple of minutes after a joint, and they're just fine. And
but also the thing is
Tourette's,
as well, while it can be seen as anecdotal, because obviously there's no real study going on. While it can be seen as anecdotal, there's also hundreds of videos of people with epilepsy. And dogs as well, and stuff like that, with epilepsy, and as soon as they put it on their gum, it stops. That should be enough. There shouldn't be any question after that, because what's the worst that could happen of them being hungry and sleepy? There's
But that's the thing. Like the paediatric scientists in epilepsy in the UK, they prefer that a patient has brain surgery before trying medicinal cannabis.
Really?
Yeah.
See, to me,
They're so scared of using medicinal cannabis. They're so worried about THC and the high and maybe the potential for psychosis that they're refusing what is a very safe medicine.
But that very small slither of the chance
could just
of
be
psychosis.
a drop, and
so
a tiny amount that's not going to have an effect.
But even if we allowed that in a conversation, that tiny sliver of possibility that it could cause psychosis. We know it doesn't cause psychosis. It just amplifies someone who's already got a predisposition.
Potentially if there's genetic predisposition.
So to go down the road of actually opening your head up and doing surgery before trying that, to me I have no other word other than that's a bit sick. I understand that some people come from a different some people come from a different place in life. Everyone sees things through different lenses, which is one of the reasons I started the show, because obviously is to gauge people in different walks of life. But it's same as there's I can't remember his name now, it's going to do my head in. But there's a couple of guys in there's one a heart surgeon and the other guy I can't remember it, but he's basically a doctor, and they tell people to go vegan and stuff like that, mainly because he's a heart surgeon, and he's saying smoking used to cause all these coronary heart disease and stuff like that, and now we're seeing it's food. So he's saying it from his perspective. Surely there should be someone somewhere saying the same thing about medicinal cannabis in regards to epilepsy, because that's the most invasive thing that can happen, opening someone's brain to try and correct something when you could just try something first with little to no implications, do you know what I mean, or adverse reactions. Hopefully, again, because like I say, you only have to go on YouTube and see there's people, fully grown adults, kids, again, pets and stuff like that, who are mid-seizure and they put it under their gum. Again, that should just be...
These children that are having hundreds and hundreds of seizures a day and then going down to nothing.
Yeah, and we're going to get onto that soon because obviously we're going to talk about Billy and his mum, Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the tide is turning, and I think it's because of people like you, obviously, and all the other people behind the scenes. But that's
I'm not sure I can take that much credit, to be honest. All I do is post some links on Facebook.
No, but again, it's the way the page is run between yourself and Danny and others is because it's not there for debate. It's not there for people.
No, we're not interested in anyone to come and argue with us.
Yeah, it's just there for information, and it's been well received on every level. And like I say, it's no small feat to think that in a pandemic you made this this thing and it's grown the way it has. And again, I can't go over the numbers. The fact that the Channel Islands makes up for such a large portion of medicinal cannabis users. There are loads of people. I've got a few mates that are on it at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
My mate had surgery on his neck, and he was on. Oh fuck me! They gave him liquid morphine when he went home, and he couldn't move. He was in a bad way, literally for a while actually, and he couldn't move. And then he ended up getting hold of Medican. This would have been early last year when it first sort of came over. He done the Skype call with the doctors and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then but putting him on liquid morphine in the first place, because that's deadly. That's a very, very bad drug to be on. And
then coming off it
is this is what I'm saying. So like that, I've never known anyone in all my years of knowing people who smoke weed or take weed or whatever. I've never known anyone to have a bad withdrawal. I've known a few people to sit there and get pissed off and go, oh fuck, I need a joint, or I need I've never seen anyone shake. I've never seen anyone go into seizure.
There's no symptoms of physical withdrawal at all. It's only a psychological withdrawal.
Yeah, it's a
which is more bugger I could do.
Yeah,
kind of thing. It's not.
That's same as sitting at work.
maybe difficulty sleeping for a day or two.
Yeah, but the same thing as sitting at work and go, I could fucking smash a pint. Do you know what I mean? It's the exact same thing. Because in a minute we're going to get onto obviously Billy and his movement, which because recently I read is that via. Before I actually go on to that, could you explain the difference between the JM CPA and the Jersey Medicinal Cannabis, the JM CPA and the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey? Is there a difference there?
Yeah.
Why did you separate the two?
Well, as I was saying before, the way that because with the rise of medicinal cannabis in the island, especially going through the UK clinics and everything, posts on that subject were dominating the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey group.
Right.
And it isn't specifically about medicinal is a separate argument to
Yeah.
wider decriminalisation and regulation. So to really sort of clean up the feed a bit of Cannabis Prohibition Jersey, it was decided it would be better to have a separate group that was specifically for patients and that was about patient advocacy and providing a forum for them to discuss, which vaporizers to use, what medicine, what people's opinions were, the medicines, the process, how to go about the process, questions about how travelling with it, driving with it, job issues. There's a lot of ancillary issues that are now coming up as a consequence of people now having this medicine.
Is there still? Do you think that there's still sort of like a what do you call it? With employers and stuff. Do you think there's still that sort of black cloud that hangs over if you
for sure.
But would there be the same thing if you said that you're on benzos?
No. That's the thing. There's a guy over here, Dr. Chris Edmond. He started up a business, Work Health Jersey, and he's been in the media recently talking about raising awareness of medicinal cannabis for employers and from an HR perspective of how companies deal with their staff being medicinal cannabis users. Because obviously in their books it'd be a lot of them, they just see it as an illegal drug. If they did drug testing and it came up, oh no, throw them out. But there's been cases in the UK where now people are being reinstated, lost their jobs because they failed a drug test, but being reinstated because it was medicinal cannabis. There's a whole kind of world. There's a massive can of worms that has now opened because we now have people using medicinal cannabis.
So it's sort of not got that label no more of being, like pothead and, the all stoners are lazy and all the other shit that we've had for
that's
years.
The thing. It's still there, but it was never correct in the first place. But now it's specifically medicinal users. It's not in any way the slightest correct.
Yeah, but like I say, it's mad that a doctor can prescribe you something dangerous like Valium that is addictive, that or opiate based whatever. When 9 times out of 10, from what I've seen, they could use cannabis first, and boycott half the dangers of the other drugs.
They could, but it comes down back to the education of the medical professionals and the licensing. It's an unlicensed drug. You've got to pay for it. It's not free. You can't get it at the hospital. The doctors are used to their prescribed practice of these medicines, which are specific chemicals, which have been shown through studies to do a specific action, not a plant which has hundreds of individual unique compounds that all interact and work together and all in slightly different concentrations across different strains and cultivars, which will benefit patients in different ways. It's a very different kettle of fish to what they're used to. It's much more like a Chinese medicine or something in that regard. It's
basically off the scale to them.
Yeah,
they just don't understand it. It's as simple as that.
They don't understand the endocannabinoid system. They don't understand how it works with the body. They don't understand what medicinal cannabis is, or cannabis is. It's the same bloody plant.
Yeah.
It just comes down to it's grown slightly more professionally for medicinal, so it's all consistent and tested to be clean and all the rest of it. No mould, no contaminants, all the rest of it. But other than that, it's the same stuff. It's the same bloody plant.
But it just doesn't have the side effects of 90% of the drugs on the market that they would give you for... Yeah. But I was going to say, do you remember... I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a guy in Guernsey, I think it was last year, and the cops went around and raided him, even though he warned them, I think, or his wife warned them, that they were going to be ordering cannabis. I can't remember what was going on. But that sort of thing, I think, shifts public opinion as well. Where you have someone who's...
There was a few cases in Guernsey. Well, Guernsey's far stricter than Jersey.
Yeah.
And there was a few cases. There was one of I think a woman ordering a CBD oil off the internet, which had THC in it and was then a Class A, and so she got done for importing a Class A. There was another case, a guy, I think he had a brain aneurysm or something, and whilst he was in hospital, The police raided his house.
That was him, yeah.
And yeah, he had some THC oils and things, and they were all confiscated, I think. Yeah, it's...
Because I read that.
There's another case coming up shortly as well.
Because I think it's the guy that you just mentioned there. I'm not sure. I remember reading it and thinking that's sickening.
Yeah.
And even
he unfortunately died as well.
Was that? Yeah, that was recently. I remember reading that, and because he put up a story, or his wife did, where they're saying it's the only thing that's working at the moment, and yet still they're getting arrested. They're going through the court process at the time of. This is the one time that you need your government, you need your police, you need, again, they're sworn to protect you. Do you know what I mean? When you need these people, they're not there. Because in that situation, that is, you're at dire straits and...
Well, it's just more that community compassionate approach, really. The
that's
police
what happened.
Coming in, finding out he's...
dying.
Dying, and this is his medicine, and still proceeding with... not using discretion and still proceeding. You've got to have questions there.
Definitely.
And then when it gets to court, and then the judge,
it's at his discretion.
We've had judges over here describe cannabis as evil. There's an interesting paper. Someone did an analysis of UN conventions, all United Nations conventions, and there's only one that uses the word evil. Guess which one?
Really?
Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. Not the one on genocide. Not the one on torture. The one on drugs.
And they
drugs
use the word
evil.
Evil.
Yep.
Over everything else. The slave trade, pedophilia, everything, rape, human trafficking, everything.
I think there has now been, more recently, a convention relating to sexual offences, which I believe also uses the word evil, but up until recently, it was the only one. Finally,
like I said to you before, the only gateway is trauma, which is why, again, like I say, that's where, when you look at the sentence and you think that someone who wants to harm a child gets off with maybe a sentence, and if it is a sentence, it's more than likely less 12 months.
Yep.
Someone's got a bit of weed and a bit of money, or a bit whatever they've got. Do you know what I mean? They end up doing 3-4 years. It's that where people's moral compass jump in. And especially, like I say, about the guy in Guernsey, where everyone, wholeheartedly condemned everything that was going on, from the police to the courts to the... I think the police released a statement.
Yes, I think the police did step back.
Tried to sort of damage control.
I don't think they actually prosecuted him in the end, or
there was something. There was.
Can't remember the details now, so it's going back a while.
Yeah, there was a silver lining to it, but then, as it happened, there wasn't. It was still them going around and raiding someone's house, who admitted to what they were doing anyway. Do you know what I mean? They're not harming anyone, and using it as a medicine. And now, unfortunately, he's gone. But there's other people in that same position.
Yeah.
Many people actually, and they've got to go through all this rigmarole and this red tape and all this bollocks, basically, to get what they know works for them,
if they can afford it.
Yeah, and then
it's a private prescription, so you need several £100s per month.
So do you think we're going to get...
a lot of these are long-term conditions. So what, the rest of your life you've got to fork out a few £100 a month for a plant?
How do you get around that?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. I mean, obviously, supply's increasing and all the rest of it, so price is coming down. It's already dropped a hell of a lot in the last year, from kind of upwards of £15 a gram for medicinal cannabis to now £5 a gram. For some varieties, some brands, some products. But it'll need to go further. We need, especially for those who can't afford it, there needs to be support available and funding available for people to be able to access it. Perhaps not for everyone who receives medicinal. Perhaps it shouldn't be free for everyone, but it should be free for those who severely need it and can't afford it.
Well, especially,
that's got to be a no-brainer, surely.
Well, the elderly,
if it's giving them a massive improvement to quality of life, how can you refuse that to someone?
The elderly and obviously the young, first, they should be looked after first. If you're 80 years old and you're suffering cancer or anything like that, or and obviously a child.
8 years old and whatever, I don't
Yeah,
care. If
yeah,
you're that
if
age and you want to get stoned, then go ahead. Quite frankly,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the way to bring in legalization. Is just start dropping it down the years. So yeah, over 80s can do any drugs they like.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just start bringing it down a bit.
Well, that'd be the way to go. Do you know what I mean? They'll be the soldiers of yesterday and today. But then again, like I say, because obviously cases like the guy in Guernsey, and then the like I say, we're going to talk about Billy in a minute, because that was the single case, I believe, where it was nearly overnight, where the British government, because he comes from County Tyrone, which falls under British.
Yeah, Northern Ireland.
Yeah, because Billy Caldwell and Charlotte Caldwell, his mum, because he was suffering, was it hundreds of seizures a day, over 100 seizures a day?
Yep, epilepsy. Yeah.
And long story short, so I want to let you fill in the blanks here. What I've missed is they went to Canada, I believe it was, and got privately prescribed medicinal cannabis to treat his 100 seizures a day. His medicine was seized at Heathrow Airport.
Yep.
Up until that point, he was seizure free for over 300 days. Hours after his medicinal cannabis was confiscated at the border, he suffered his first epileptic fit. He was only 12 years old at the time. Now, I'm assuming that common sense came into play there, because he got it shortly
So I think
after.
from there he went to Great Ormond Street Hospital and was in there for a bit.
Right.
And then it was a few days before the Home Office actually released his medication to him.
Because people were in uproar over that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
rightly
it was
so.
made front page news, and was one of the leading causes of the change in law in the UK in late 2018. Was as a consequence of Billy and Charlotte Caldwell campaigning.
So, do you know any of the backstory before then? So, do you know about his journey before then?
Only a little bit. I mean, as you summarised, really, he's long-term epilepsy.
Yeah.
Wasn't finding the medications that they were receiving to be efficacious, so looked to Canada and worked with specialists in Canada to find a cannabis oil formulation that worked for Billy, and then attempted to bring that back to the UK and was stopped at customs.
So, but that's the annoying thing, is if you're having over 100 seizures a day, which, let's be honest, is brutal, and that's no life for anyone. And very dangerous on every level. If you're 300 days seizure free, and then hours after your medicine, we're going to call it medicine because it is confiscated, you have suffered. He suffered another fit. That's not anecdotal anymore. It still falls under the bracket of anecdotal, but it's not actually anecdotal, is it? Which is why
it
I
is
think
and it isn't.
Yeah. But that's horrendous to think, because obviously his mum's obviously a soldier. Do you know what I mean? Because
No, she's awesome.
yeah, if anything's gonna get anything that would break the government's back would be a mother's love. Do you know what I mean? Which is hopefully what's happening here.
It's such a shame that it really came to that, though, of kind of having to, emphasise these children's stories in the media.
Yeah.
To get that emotional kind of grab to get government to do something.
Yeah, it shouldn't
took
take that.
Extreme situation. Really, it shouldn't have required any of that. But,
And let's be frank, that is.
that did bring in the law, but it didn't really change anything. Yes, it changed the law so that specialist prescribers could prescribe it.
But they didn't.
But no.
Mm.
There's only been a handful of prescriptions on the NHS in the UK for medicinal cannabis, and Charlotte had to fight tooth and nail to get a prescription, an NHS prescription, out of Northern Ireland. Almost had to take them to court, but I think that got pulled back before that. But and then received a prescription, and that was about a year ago, and he's just gone over a year seizure free since having an NHS prescription. Because
that's obviously you shouldn't have to, like you say, you shouldn't have to go through that. It shouldn't even have to have ever gone anywhere near there.
Yeah.
But before that, you shouldn't have had to take your child the other side of the world to find something that stops having over 100 seizures a day.
Yeah.
When it's been, well documented, I can't say proven, obviously, but it's been well documented that it does work for this sort of thing. To even try it, they should have just, given it a whirl instead of having to fly 5,000 miles away to go and find something that does. That's but like I say again, it's because of stories like that people sit up and they take notice and they go, hang on a fucking minute, and again, couple that with the fact that she's not going to stop, and like she was.
No, she's still going.
Well, that's what I mean, because she's a soldier. Obviously, it's and so is he. It's one of them stories that makes you think. Well, sometimes as bad as that is, it's the only thing that changes things, which is sad in itself. But but now he's because he's now doing the walk with the wizard.
Yep. So yeah. So off the back of obviously, Billy and Charlotte were successful in getting an NHS prescription for Billy, and Charlotte has continued to be active within the medicinal cannabis community and does amazing work for so many patients and parents of patients in similar situations to herself, advising them and helping them access medicinal cannabis through the UK clinics and what have you. And now has been working for the last few months and just recently established a new campaign called the I Am Billy campaign, which is specifically to try and get other patients to get the same as what Billy's got, to get his medication paid for and on the NHS. So there's a couple of aspects to it. The main problem with getting it on the NHS is the NHS doesn't feel there's sufficient evidence at the moment. NICE, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, which approves drugs, doesn't feel that there is sufficient evidence. So one of the key parts of this I Am Billy campaign is to do a real-world evidence trial of existing medicinal cannabis patients, enrol them, get into a trial that would get their medication paid for and document their progress with an experience with medicinal cannabis.
And you can do that now?
Well, this is the idea of this trial. Right. So this trial would be set up and properly start documenting these experiences that these patients are getting to demonstrate to the NHS, build up sufficient evidence that would appease them and allow them to prescribe it on the NHS for free.
Because it's...
So that's kind of the key aim. And then they also are looking at setting up, as part of the I Am Billy campaign, a non-profit I Am Billy clinic, to help people access medicinal cannabis, and also a foundation for those who may not get onto the trial, because the trial will probably be limited to specific medical conditions. It'll be limited in numbers, obviously, but there'll be people who really need it as well. So there's going to be a foundation that's going to do fundraising to set up to pay for people's medication who qualify as well. So
and that's what he's raising money for now?
Yep. So they've now so the I Am Billy campaign, so that was set up a couple of weeks ago, and Charlotte's been in touch with us now for getting on for a year, from quite early on in the setup of the End Cannabis Prohibition Jersey page. Chatted to her a few times, and she reached out to us about this I Am Billy campaign and invited myself and some other members of the JMCPA to join the campaign. So I've joined on the policy advisory board along with a guy called Adam from the Guernsey Medicinal Cannabis Patients Group. And then a number of patients from the Jersey patients from the JMCPA have joined on the patient council as well of the I Am Billy campaign. On the policy advisory board, kind of give them some insight into the Jersey situation, because Charlotte really wants to incorporate the Crown dependencies in this, and not just be the UK thing, but Crown dependencies as well. And then obviously the patients to help advise on the patient advocacy side. And then, so yeah, as you were saying, they've got the Wizard's Walk that was started on Friday. So they're hoping to do a 1,000-mile walk. But I think that's in conjunction with everyone chipping in to do the 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
And they're looking at coming to Jersey as part of the walk, and we'll be here next weekend.
Well, it'd be nice to meet up and do a bit of a walk with them.
Well, that's
awesome.
the hope. Waiting to get the itinerary at the moment, and then hopefully, we can get everyone together and show support and get in the media, and
because it's 1,000 miles for thousands of vulnerable and chronically ill patients, and the NHS. It's and the NHS. They're giving money to the NHS as well, along with the thing it says, vulnerable and chronically ill patients and the NHS, yeah. But it is one of these sort of stories where you sit there and you put, two people, mother and son, who genuinely do restore your faith in humanity, because it is a story for the ages. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing. The Walk with the Wizard thing's awesome. Do you know what I mean? Because and especially the fact that he's
a massive Harry Potter fan.
The fact that he's coming to Jersey as well just makes it even better, because then it will raise more awareness, and obviously with us being the way we are at the moment.
Yeah. Well, she's got a couple of different companies in partnership with the campaign, and one of them's Northern Leaf. So yeah, there is some local interest there.
That's from Jersey.
Yeah. So that's the one who was at the up in St Mary's, the former Tampa Park site.
Right.
So yeah, not only kind of Jersey patients, myself representing on that side, we've got a Jersey company representing as part of the campaign as well. And I understand that some announcements will be made when they come to Jersey. Don't know quite what yet.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But I love that story, because I remember it. I remember it when it was happening, as in, seeing the headlines and stuff like that, reading little bits here and there. I didn't, until I knew I was getting you on, read into it as much as what I did. Now, like anyone who reads into it, I'm a fan. It's amazing. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them, like I say, it is a little bit one of them where you think it never should have happened, but it did, and, only good things can happen now from it. Do you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, and then just to finish off, so they'll be doing their walk, coming through Jersey, and then be going up to London to talk to the health department and the MHRA and the NHS and NICE, and get everyone around the table and hopefully push forward on getting a real world evidence trial going to.
So that's the basis of what they're doing. They're trying to get a real world evidence trial, so then they can move forward and get other people in the same position as Billy, basically, to get their medicine.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah,
but yeah, it's just one of them sort of things where first when you read it and you start looking into this, it half makes you think, fucking hell, am I living in a different world? Because again, to me, it is just weed. It's not a massive thing. Like I said to you before, I was in court about 10 years ago, standing there going, why? Do you know what I mean? Why am I here? And then, I don't know if it was Tracy Vauer or Karina Alves, when they done the higher sentences for paedophiles. Someone stood up in our state assembly and said, I'm getting the impression that the public feel that sex offences aren't treated as seriously as someone, don't quote me on this, as someone who, let's say, smokes a bit of puff or has some drugs, or I can't remember what the words they use. But in that 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it took to say that, I thought, well, at least someone knows now. Someone said it, it's out there, you can't put the cat back in the bag. That is how we all feel. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be, it needs to be proportionate. The crime that you commit needs to be proportionate, with the sentence that you get. That's should always be the way.
Yeah, there's been some horrendous sentencing
it's
over here.
It's a fucking joke.
One last year, a guy came through the airport with 1 gram of heroin, which they agreed was for personal use, and they gave him for 3.5 years.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
3.5 years.
For personal use of heroin.
20 quid's worth of smack.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I see it as in court for one of Cheyenne's cases with, I can't remember who it was, which one, but anyway, there was a guy, a Scottish fella, and I was standing outside having a ciggy, and he came out, and I was like, standard question, what you in for? Do you know what I mean? And hers was a bad case. You can tell it's a bad case because it was in raw court. And which rarely happens, to be honest, which is, again, says it all.
Yeah.
But, so we're standing in raw court, went outside for a fag, and the Scottish guy said that he got drunk and fell asleep in a shop doorway. Now, I've been there before. I'm pretty sure that most people watching this have. Do you know what I mean? But he was a repeat offender apparently on some level. Who and Cheyenne's case got referred back for another few months, like he got bailed or whatever.
Yeah.
And they gave the guy 18 months or 9 months. I can't remember which one.
For sleeping in a doorway.
For sleeping in a doorway because he'd been done for something alcohol related before.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you've got a problem with drink, they should send you to a place where you can get help with that problem with drink. But the judge's idea of helping him with drink was, if you're in jail, you won't be drinking no more. So, so he can't work no more. Obviously, he worked full time, etc. Can't pay his tax, can't pay his stamp, can't. It again. Everyone sees this and everyone looks at it for the absolute shit show that it is, and it is. It's like we've got dinosaurs sitting in our courtrooms that are so what's the word? Disengaged with the public, so far away from anything that we think is normal or moral or anything, and they keep acting the way they act, which is, again, there needs to be a call on some level, whether it be calling out judges and stuff. Personally, I don't know, or like you said before, calling out the politicians who represent them on some level.
Well, it's just, how do we influence that sentencing? You know what I mean? How do we bridge that gap between the judges and the public?
That's the thing. It's
How
down
do
to
we get them to... Because they all seem to be using precedent. Like, I've been looking at a couple... Because I keep an eye on the magistrate courts and the Royal Court judgments. And some of the precedents they're going back to are kind of like 95 and things.
Yeah.
For drug cases.
Yeah.
Are we still judging cases the same way 26 years later? I don't think we are in any shape or form. So why are we still using judgments?
Yeah, they reference the judgment of someone else.
Yeah.
So they say, you know...
But yeah, because we did it that way in 1995, we're going to do you the same way.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, but we've changed since then. Surely.
Society's changed. Everything's
Massively.
changed. Yeah. So they're still pulling up draconian laws, draconian sentences for things
that precedent basis. It doesn't...
Well, it's actually, but it's wrong. It's morally wrong because you're setting a precedent, like you say, of yesterday. So the same way that, you know, the same way you judge a joke that was told in 1950 would be judged today, but reverse it and then put it in a courtroom and then fuck with someone's life. But like I say again, it only pisses me off the most because predominantly the most people who get caught with cannabis are young kids. I say kids in the sense of...
Well, it's like 18 to 24.
Yeah, so they still have youth on their side.
Yeah, exactly.
But
they're still classed as young persons by the Children's
by the court.
Commissioner and everyone. Yeah.
But they're still being treated as if they're Pablo Escobar when they've got a limited amount of weed, a limited amount of money, or whatever the case may be. And they're still being dragged through the court system and everything else. That to me, it just pisses me off because then, like I said before, you just ruin their life. And if anything, all you've done there is, again, go back to trauma. You've fucked that person up so much that they're more than likely going to go on to harder drugs. They're more than likely going to go down a totally different route in life. Unless you just turn around and said, look, I'm going to get rid of that, confiscate it or whatever, learn your lesson, there's a £200 fine. Whatever they do, I don't know. But there has to be something better than what they're doing now because it's fucking atrocious. Like I've been through it myself as a kid. I'm not saying that I was innocent on any level. Do you know what I mean? I was guilty of the most. But at the same time, you do look at some of these cases now and you think, because now you obviously have a phone that can be downloaded by the police and they make you out to be worse than what you actually are. Most of these people are just helping out friends. Most of these people are just smoking with friends. I remember years ago, someone said in an interview that they passed a joint to their friend and then they got him done for intent to supply. Now that's fucked up because that means that you as a copper and as a centenaire and as the court, you're taking the piss royally. Because you know fine well sitting in a party and smoking it, because then on your record it makes you look like you've imported something, that you're, you know, some big time drug dealer, and it's only the words that an employer will see. They'll only see, you know, possession with intent to supply. They won't look into the reasoning behind it. They won't know that you sat there and passed a joint to someone. And again, why don't they go this far with sex offenders? That's why people like me and people like Cheyenne and stuff like that question them and question their motives. And this is what I'm saying, their moral compass. Because if I was a judge, or you were a judge, or anyone with half, you know, I don't want to say it, but anyone with any sort of, you know, how do I put this nicely? No, fuck them, actually. If anyone, no, but if you have any moral standing in the society in which you live, do you know what I mean? You would never go down that road as an officer, as a centenaire, or a judge, ever. It would never even cross your mind to put the two together, that you passed a joint at a party, or you gave your mate a gram or whatever to go home and smoke, to then say intent to supply, to then know that you're going to ruin that young man's life or that young woman's life. It's a fucking joke and it needs to be called out for everything that is. And I hope that now, with obviously what you're doing and a few other people will start calling these people out, whether it be politicians, whether it be, you know, the police chief. The police chief doesn't really have a leg to stand on here, because the rest of the UK, like you said before, there's certain places where the chief of police is saying, look, just leave it. Because they can do that.
Unfortunately, our new chief of police, Robin Smith, he does have a bit of form, because I did some Googling of him and I found a quote of him. You were talking before about how cannabis in the UK was changed from a Class C back up to a Class B.
Yeah.
And I found a quote from him around that time, sort of saying that, we're not interested in the distinction in classes. We're going to go out and get everyone. Kind of. That's not a direct quote, but that's kind of the general meaning of it. And when he arrived in Jersey and he was quoted, he did not long article in the JEP, and he was quoted as saying, "Oh, we're going to be ruthless and relentless."
I remember this.
Sort of against drug use, against criminals generally, I believe. But you're moving into a small island jurisdiction when you need community policing, kind of walking in with that tone of voice,
as if it's Hackney.
Yeah,
and there's drug wars and there's violence. There's none of that. Do you know what I mean?
And you need that community. You need a community policing element.
Yeah.
And if you look at, especially in this UK at the moment situation with talking about stop and search situation and how that needs to be addressed, because it is massively disproportionately targets ethnic minorities than it does white drug users, even though white drug users are more likely to use drugs.
Yeah.
White people are more likely to use drugs. So coming into Jersey, it needs that more communities. So it is a slap on the wrist. It is diversionary tactics rather than.
But you don't win any support from the public by doing that, especially in a place like Jersey.
Well, you do. That's the thing, though.
By who, though?
Because it's an incredibly conservative island. If you look back at the roots of kind of Prohibition and everything, you get back into the 1800s and the whole temperance movement, which kind of came out of some different Christian groups.
Yeah.
There was massive alcohol issues in the UK and elsewhere, and it was originally about moderation and then moved towards teetotalism. And you can kind of see that then moved into just wider anti-drug sentiment. And Methodism, which is kind of one of Jersey's strongest Christian groupings. I'm not sure the correct word.
Beliefs.
But that's massive over here, and they were very much part of that temperance, teetotal, abstinence type movement. And it's still there.
It seems to be, if it is that way, because maybe I need to start hanging out with different people, but I've genuinely, I haven't met anyone in the last...
not in our age groups, but go north of 50 or 60, and the predominant...
Even like, my dad's what now? And my mum, like I said to you, my mum's a hippie, like, do you know what I mean? So all of her friends, all of my dad's mates, I've never met anyone who's anti-heroin and anti-coke, maybe because, they just see drugs as drugs, do you know what I mean? But weed, the only passing comment I might have heard around that age group is it makes you lazy, or just a lack of understanding. But I've never actually met anyone that's that hard line that they think that doors need to come off fucking hinges at R5 in the morning, and because
maybe not to that extreme, but they are generally will just be supportive of the action.
But that's what he's essentially saying is we'll go to war with. Basically, because again, you have to remember that Jersey doesn't have the problems that England does in that sense. Do you know what I mean? We don't have like crack and there's hardly any heroin over here now because everyone gets subutex. Do you know what I mean? They've medicated that problem literally. There's not really drug crime over here. There's not drug violence over here, and if there is, then you wouldn't know about it. Do you know what I mean? So to come over here with that sort of attitude, when we have a massive problem with pedophilia, we have a massive problem with historic and institutional pedophilia that was covered up and stuff like that, to then walk over and just, go that way, it just shows how much of a fucking arsehole he is. Because
I'm not going to go that far.
I can say that. Fuck him. But it's the same as...
you can see it in bringing back the drug squad and things. It's kind of like...
Well, this is what I'm saying, because last year was it last year? Because last year I said, I spoke on a page somewhere, and I said it'd be interesting to know how much the PPU, because the PPU, the Public Protection Unit, is only a small unit of police that work on, historic abuse and with children and stuff. So they're only a small group, but it's prevalent in Jersey. Always has been, always will be.
It's prevalent everywhere, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but Jersey seems to go out their way to fucking cover it up. There's a difference. Do you know what I mean? Whereas institutionally in places like Ireland and the UK, then it's separate institutions that are covering up. Whereas Jersey, we know. But then I'd like to see the funding for the drug squad, now that we have a drug squad. Because it'd be interesting to know how much they give a shit about kids, as opposed to how much they care about, let's be honest, predominantly weed. It is predominantly weed that they're catching. It is mostly people that smoke weed that they're going after. So on one side, you have people who are getting it legally and able to access this, medicine. And on the other side, you have a copper who thinks he's fucking Batman, who thinks that he can run around and basically take us back 50 years. It makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't gel.
It's getting silly already because, I've heard of patients being stopped by police and showing their prescription, but then still being searched in case they have some cannabis on them that they shouldn't have.
Yeah. But this, again, I'll say it to the camera, it's fucking career suicide. It is. Because even though you might have that conservative backing, even though that might be what got you the job, times are changing. They're changing pretty fucking quick. So you either change with them or you be out the door. It's very simple. Jersey has a way of churning people out. Do you know what I mean? Like, even though it's a...
We get golden handshakes generally, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but then at the same time, we do have a way of looking at strangers the same way they look at strangers in the backwoods of Texas. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like the Charlie Parkers of the world. Do you know what I mean? They might come in here with the best intentions, but the moment we find out that you're not gelling with, the way that we are, you'll be fucking gone. It doesn't matter by hook or by crook. You'll be gone. So like, it makes no sense again. And again, I love Gary. Gary knows I love him. He's brilliant, Gary Burgess. But the thing that they done where they basically, took cameras around to a raid, and I can't remember his name, McGarrigan, the cop. And he's like, I'll just let you know that we're out there, we'll be there. And you're like, fuck off. No one gives a shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's genuinely... It's like something from the 80s. Remember them cheesy cop shows? Where they run around and they're like, but at least in the 80s they had coke, and they had, like in America they had like cocaine, they had like, thousands or millions of pounds worth of stuff. Over here you're literally taking an entire camera crew, 10 police, a dog, and some fucking idiot who wants to be Superman, just basically to catch nothing. It's nothing at the end of the day. It didn't mean anything. The guy wasn't doing anything. Do you know what I mean? If you show me someone who's sitting around playing PlayStation games, smoking weed, I'll show you someone who's not causing any fucking trouble. He's not, alcohol causes more trouble. And I'm a firm believer in fucking alcohol. I like it. But at the same time, if I drink, I'm more at risk, and this is me saying it, I'm more at risk of doing something stupid than what I could ever do when I was stoned. Yeah. Ever. And...
Well, that's the thing, with alcohol, you do get intoxicated.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not something you'd get with...
With weed, you get high.
Yeah.
You get hungry, you get happy, and sleepy. That's pretty much it. There's no other... I don't remember anything else anyway. Like I said, it's been a while since I smoked it, but that's what I remember. Hungry, happy,
that
sleepy.
Is an effect,
yeah, that was
not
it.
remembering.
Like I say, I only really stopped because I was sick of fighting with police at 5:30 in the morning naked and eat my son's lunch. I mean, it was just one of them. It was no problem to give it up. But at the same time, like I say, it just seems like the police are on this side of history and everyone else seems to be on that side. Who they're placating to, I don't know. Again, like I say, I speak to a lot of people. They must be out there, obviously.
Well, if you think who actually votes in the island, it's
That's
generally
another point, yeah.
the older population who are more conservative, and those are the ones who are going to be appeased by such kind of actions and things. Because, drugs are bad.
Wasn't there recently a thing with kids? They had a vote with children. Not children, like teenagers. But I think they're all from... what's the
was that the youth parliament?
Yeah, the youth parliament.
Yeah, I saw that. They had a debate on legalising drugs. I think,
it was
generally.
one... They missed it by one.
Yeah. But it was... I listened to it, and the arguments against were awful. Were really poorly constructed.
But they're all Vic College kids.
Well, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, it was sixth formers, so it's all Vic College, Bowlier, JCG, Holier.
They should get some council estate kids. Do you know what I mean? Actually have an open debate, a proper debate that can actually be,
there was just it seemed very much that the arguments being put forward against were just regurgitations of the old war on drugs propaganda
of their parents.
Yeah, and the schools.
Yeah.
You've got to assume that the schools are just perpetuating this bullshit
see,
as well.
What we should do is organise one between Hope Valley, Grainville, and Vic and Thingy, and then see where we end up. Do you know what I mean? Because I guarantee that there's poor kids tend to be a lot more liberal because they think there's a lot more other things that we need to be tackling other than this shit.
But like some of the arguments are just like, more people get their drinks spiked and stuff like that. It's just like, that's not a really good argument. That's really awful.
Maybe a bit of real world experience will help. We'll revisit in 2 years and see where they are.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's it's great. It's great to chat to people like you because it puts things in perspective, and you can watch it. Like when you watch people talk and you watch public perception move from A to B, but most people don't actually fathom the way it actually works, what it's taken to get there, and all the rest of it. And again, I didn't know before that we make up for, per capita, most of the people that access medicinal cannabis. That's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, got one of the highest rates per capita of medicinal cannabis users in Europe for sure.
So we're basically an island full of stoners, whereas we used to be an island full of alcoholics, is what they used to say.
Oh, we still are.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add or talk about?